For those of you who don't know me, I am married to Brandon Bays, who a lot of you saw yesterday giving a beautiful presentation. And we've been business partners for the last 25 years. My training with her has essentially been in emotional health, emotional well-being, and in spiritual awakening to the truth of our being, and awakening to really what we want in life, and discovering to the huge extent that that is already with us. It's already inside us. It actually defines us. My particular interest in working with her has been to refine and develop the work that she presents and that I present over those years, and also to focus on human greatness, human potential, our kind of divine human potential, if you like. And so I've been focused on that for most of that 25 years. I've been interested in it since childhood. How is it that some of us can really dip into a wellspring of greatness, of authenticity, of creativity, of genius, and allow that to live through us, allow that to be expressed fully in life, when some of us seem to get trapped and just kind of held back in the humdrum, knee-jerk reactions of life. And that was my experience for so long. I recognized that there was something untapped in me. From childhood, I recognized this. I recognized there was something that was deep down that was a potential that I wasn't reaching. And we do all the things that our teachers tell us when we're very young, and our parents tell us. They tell us, you've got an intelligence there, so why aren't we seeing it in your exam results? You must try harder. And so I tried harder without realizing that the stress of just kind of efforting and struggling and trying to kind of push against the grain was actually counterproductive in life. That the best results I got, not just academically, but in life generally, was when I was more relaxed, emotionally open, emotionally accessible. And so for chunks of my life, works out from early childhood, I'd ended up with stress, with anxiety, and with depression from quite an early age. And I was told all the normal things. I was diagnosed first in my teens, although I'd been suffering from cyclical depression since about the age of 8. In my teens, it really flared up, and I got all the standard answers that people gave in those days, and to a great extent, the answers they give today as well. I was told, well, it's in your family. Your mother has this, and so it's natural that you would have it. It's genetic. And I was told, well, it's a mental illness, so we need to treat you with drugs. And this was the story that I went with for years in life. In truth, not wanting to believe it. And kind of the way you said, Brian, the stress and the anxiety that were here, I recognized the physical symptoms of them, but I didn't have a name for them. I didn't know what was actually taking place. All I knew was that for chunks of time, it felt, excuse my language, it felt like shit. My life felt like shit. And then I would fall into these downswings, into full-blown depression, and would, barely be able to get out of bed for weeks on end, and would, if I could get out of bed, would kind of struggle down to the sofa and watch daytime television, which I hate, and just feel wretched until eventually some, I guess, anger at myself and some impelling force drove me back to work. And I lived with these cycles, buying into the orthodox message that this was inevitable stuff. All you could do was to treat it with drugs, and la-di-da-di-da. I went on like this for several decades, very nearly 30 years, until the depression became so bad, became really overwhelming, blended with anxiety in my life, so that I was diagnosed with chemical depression, anxiety depression, all sorts of stuff. I was on a whole host of medications, visiting a psychiatrist on a regular basis, and a friend came to me. This was back in late 1994, and he said, "I've booked you a therapy." And I said, well, okay. I wasn't very enthusiastic. I'd kind of tried everything up until this point, or at least I thought I'd tried everything. He said, "I've booked you a therapy. Don't know what it is, but it's going to cost you £200. And without having any faith at all in what I was letting myself in for, I kind of went, well, okay, I've nothing to lose here. I'd recently been quite close to suicide. I'd been saving the sleeping pills they gave me, and I was in a real mess. And so I thought, well, what the hell, one more thing, and nothing to lose. What I didn't know was that this was right at the beginning of Brandon's journey work. And I turned up for a therapy session, and something really unusual happened. Something unique in my experience happened, because I sat down and was asked, okay, what's here? What do you want to work with? What are you feeling? And I explained, I'd been diagnosed with depression. It had been going on cyclically for a long, long time. And that I just felt, pretty hopeless in life. Like life was pointless. There was no juice. I can remember describing it like it's walking through a grey fog, chewing cardboard. And I was asked, okay, so, emotionally, what's here now? Now, I was used to that question from psychologists and psychiatrists, and normally they would want the story about the way that I was feeling. They'd want to know the background. They'd want to know the references, try to figure out why you're feeling this way, and it would turn into a dialogue that seemed to just be endless, seemed to get nowhere. But this time with journey work, what are you feeling? And I named an emotion, and the response came back, and it shocked me. The response was simply, great. So just feel that. Now, that kind of fried my brain. No one in my life had ever told me that, From growing up at the youngest age, what I'd had was there are good emotions and there are bad emotions. There are some that are allowed, and there are some that are not allowed. And what I'd not recognized over the years was that so many emotions had just been, swallowed back. I'd pushed them down into my body. I denied they existed. I definitely didn't have a name for them. But on this fateful day, I named an emotion, and this comment came back, great. So just feel that. And it was as if it didn't make sense. And then just, close your eyes. And so welcome that emotion, feel it everywhere in your body, let it flood through, just open with it. And I wasn't very good at it, so I started to tell a story about how I felt rather than to feel the emotion itself. And of course, the advice comes back is stop the story, just feel the emotion. And it took a little while, it took some getting used to, for my body just to let down and to trust that it was okay to feel emotions that I had labeled as anything from negative through to annihilative, dangerous. And yet still there was I suppose because I'd tried everything, and, I was just at a point of hopelessness, at a point of giving up. I thought, well, nothing to lose, just open. And the hopelessness came like a hopelessness I'd never experienced in my life before. And then hopelessness underneath that. I was asked, so if you feel all of that, if you allow all of that, and there was something deeper, what might that be? And it's like sinking into a different layer and a different layer of emotion. I had never experienced this in living memory. And deeper emotions arose. And learning slowly here, like baby steps, I opened the body to feel what was here. Pointlessness just turned into complete overwhelm. Now, overwhelm was something that I would have run from in my life before. If I'd felt overwhelmed, I would have got busy. I would have done anything from, work to sport to wheel spinning, pointless activity. I would have done anything to have avoided the feeling of overwhelm. But this time, overwhelm, okay, just welcome overwhelm. And underneath that, I hit anger and rage like I'd not felt for years. And again, the invitation was here, pre-framed with, great, you're doing wonderfully. So to feel emotions, the feedback was, this is good, this is healthy. And emotions like these, anger and rage that I had avoided, like death since childhood, they came flooding through my body, felt, uncomfortable, felt obliterative. Deeper than that, what's here? If you feel that fully, what's next? What's deeper than this? And then fear came, terror came, and it kind of burned through the body like a white hot flame. And still the same question. You're doing great. If you just allow that, if you allow all of that, what's here? What's next? And eventually dropping down through really intense emotions, I just came to nothing. Like there was no emotion possible. There was just a huge velvety black blank canvas, like a universal void. And I said, there's nothing here. Same question. Okay, great, wonderful. So if you surrendered into nothing, if you surrendered into the heart of nothing, if you allowed all nothing to be here, a universe of nothing to be here, how would that feel? If you surrendered right into the heart of it, what might be coming through this? If there were cracks appearing or pinholes, what might come through? And I kind of fell into a deeper state and I said, well, if I let go into this, then death is here. And fear of death arose. Same comment. Beautiful. So fear of death is here. And if you surrendered completely into death, if you let go into death, then what? That was a question I never thought I'd be asked in this lifetime. And I guess I was so beyond the striving, beyond the efforting to hang on to a semblance of normality or sanity or life itself that I just let go. And I went internally, okay, if this dies, this thing I've called me dies, then so be it. It's enough, I'm ready. And I let go, and the experience was extraordinary. It was as if the body melted, the body dissolved. It was as if the notions that I'd clung to, the ideas of who I thought I was, started to dissolve and melt and fall away. It was as if everything I'd held dear was stripped away, just like this dissolution of self. And then absolute nothing. And so the question came seemingly from somewhere massively distant. So when death has had its way with you, what's here? And the question seemed nonsensical. It was not that I'd been brought up to believe in an afterlife, not to believe in a God or a heaven or a hell, any of this. And yet there was undeniably some presence here. And I said, well, something still is. Then okay, so let go into that. Let go fully into that. And it was like a crashing through. Light came into the darkness. Light showed itself as being the essential nature of darkness. And I fell into an obliterative love, a peace that I barely could have conceived of prior to that in my life. And I started to sob. I said, it's divine, it's God, it's love, it's peace, it's omniscience. There's silent knowing, silent awareness. It was as if everything that I'd ever striven for, everything that I'd ever looked for on the outside, was showing up on the inside as the essence in me. And I was guided through a campfire process to empty out childhood hurts and upsets. My parents were there, and I remember yelling at both of them, getting deeply upset at some childhood memory, and coming to a forgiveness and such huge letting go. And the session, because I was a pretty bad student, I struggled with the emotions. I could make pictures, I could tell stories, but to feel the emotions wasn't normal for me. The session took just over 2 hours, and I came out of the therapy room, and I'm blown away to the point where I could barely speak and say, thank you, that was the most profound experience of my life. And the friend who had booked the session for me drove me home. I couldn't speak, had nothing to say. But when I checked internally, when I checked in with my body, I was absolutely aware that the depression and the anxiety that I'd lived with since childhood, age 37, I could not find it. I couldn't locate it. It wasn't anywhere in consciousness. It certainly wasn't in my body. I realized that through all the ups and downs of life, that some essential part of me, the essence of me, had been untouched, was unaffected. And so I went home and, I mean, truthfully, please do not do this. I did a very stupid thing. I went to the bathroom cabinet, and the drugs that I'd been prescribed, I couldn't stop taking them immediately. And I thought, well, okay, I'll take a half a dose tonight. Took a half a dose of the medication, woke up the next day, and still this extraordinary sense of completeness, of wholeness that I had never felt ever in my life was present. It was as if the things that I'd been looking for were already present and correct. I woke up and went about my day quietly the next day, same thing. Same sense of well-being, same sense of the essence of me, the truth of me being the reality of me. And then went back to the bathroom cabinet the next night to take the next dose and couldn't do it, and threw the drugs away. Now, please do not do this if you ever come off these types of medication, and I'm talking about the Prozacs and the diazepam, temazepam type uppers, downers, so-called antidepressant drugs. The cold turkey was extraordinary, was absolutely, wrecking. But I knew even through that, and this is the reason I'm sharing with you, that I knew even through that experience that who I am was not touched. Even through the physical pain of it, I knew that I was whole. I knew that I was well. I knew that this was just physical pain that needed to take place. And sure enough, my body turned around within about 3 weeks, I would say. The aches and the pains and the distress of going like hard cold turkey like this disappeared. And I came back to a normalcy and began to notice that my brain was functioning with a clarity that it hadn't had in decades. That given the right opportunity, given the right leading, given the right emotional opening and completion of old issues like this, that my brain knew exactly what to do to reconfigure its own chemistry. And I started to feel waves of bliss and waves of bliss that went on for months as an undercurrent in my life. Even though I was triggered, even though, life did its thing, and the shit hit the fan from time to time. But this sense of indelible completeness, satisfaction, peace in who I am, and that has never left me from this time. So for 25 years, I've been working with Brandon to hopefully deepen the tools, to refine the tools, and to show people a different way in life. Because up until meeting her, I had tried pretty much everything to find peace, to find satisfaction, to be at home in my own skin. And I had failed ultimately at that job. Even though I'd had this interest, as I explained, since childhood in human potential, even though I recognized that there's something that I can't quite reach in me, and I definitely see this in other people, there's something that is authentically beyond our conceptualized capacity. I didn't know how to reach it, and I tried everything. With school, for sure, I thought, well, it's got to lie in education. It's got to lie in academic results. And so I struggled and efforted, and always the same thing. We don't know what it is with you, but you're not achieving your potential. And I knew it was true, but I didn't know what to do about it. I could read for longer. I could struggle to understand, but still my results were, I want to say sporadic at best. They weren't consistently good. And I struggled right the way through school, right the way through university. I'd always had a love of reading. And so on leaving university, started to read different types of books, started to read more spiritually based books, and to find, okay, what is it I'm looking for? What is it I'm searching for that will complete me? What will make me whole? And then going through relationships, falling in love, getting married, having idealized pictures of what would take place, of course, and I don't need to tell you what happens when you idealize relationships. They don't play out that way. No relationship plays out in the way we dream they're going to play out. And so still not the coping mechanisms, still the emotional struggling, still these ups and downs with anxiety and massive stress that spilled over other people and hurt them, still falling into cyclical depression, even though my focus was so largely on what is it I need here? What is it that's going to completely and bring me to peace in myself? Tried throwing myself into business, and I was definitely good at spending a lot of time at it. Worked long hours, ran several businesses at one time. You know, always what's the newest, latest, best idea to create material wealth? Falling into the trap of believing that if I create material wealth, if I create the lifestyle that I'm looking for, then that's going to free me and is going to sort me out in a permanent way. That's going to give me what I need. But even when successful times came, finding that it was same old stuff, same old baggage. You know, there'd be a hit from the achievement. There'd be a hit from the financial gain. There'd be a hit from what that financial gain could allow me to buy, to acquire, to attain lifestyle-wise. But still, same old me, same old skin, same old issues. Patterns like this. In the 1980s, I threw myself into personal growth, and I thought, okay, this new wave of positive visualization, of affirmation, of faking it until you make it, of seeing the way you want life to be, putting out for what you do want, expressed in positive language, a lot of stuff that you still hear today. And you know what? It was interesting. It captivated me for a while, and it produced short-term results. It produced some wealth. I was lucky in many areas and led a relatively affluent life. But same old stuff. It kept coming back. It was as if I couldn't get away from the baggage I was carrying with me, even though I had no clue what the baggage was. Until one day I was walking with my former wife, and we were pushing in a buggy. My little son, Mark, he would have been about, oh gosh, I don't know, only about 10 or 12 months old. And we were in the south of France on gosh, I forget what they call it there, in the Cannes area, the Riviera, that's what I'm looking for. And we were walking along the front in Cannes, and I was a dreamer, you know, I was always reaching for the next thing, the next goal, the next hit that is going to complete me. And I was a boater, so I had a small boat, and we water skied as a family together and with friends. And my dream was bigger boat, and I was always goal setting, writing this stuff down. So yeah, if you write it down, there's more chance of it coming into manifestation. We're walking along the seafront in Cannes, and I paused, and my wife kept kind of walking ahead of me a little bit, looked out into the bay, and there anchored in the bay was the boat that was my dream, the boat that was going to fix everything in my life. It's like, if I'm wealthy enough to own that boat, if I've got enough money to create that lifestyle, then guess what? Then I'm right. Then I'm done. Then I'm happy. Then I'm at peace in this life. I've achieved what I've set out to achieve, and things will be done. And I was looking at the boat, and I had a Sartori moment, had this strange experience of almost like, you know, on some films where the telephoto lens just kind of zooms in on the subject. Well, it was as if that had happened in reverse. And as I'm standing there, I went into some altered state, and it was as if I was transported onto the back deck of the boat. And there I was, experiencing directly, in a strange way, I'm sitting here with a big feast laid out. My friends are all around me. We're sipping champagne. We're on the boat. We're laughing. We're joking. And oh shit. Same stuff. Same issues. I'm not satisfied. I'm still essentially unhappy. I still feel essentially incomplete. And that realization sent me into a tailspin of trying desperately everything that I knew, more and more of reaching outside me for what I thought I needed to attain in order to be whole. And that drove me into the worst experience of depression that I'd ever experienced in life. That was what brought me to the journey with Brandon. And since that time, that was late 1994, what I've discovered has been extraordinary. Obviously, it's unfolding. It continues to unfold to this day. And still, I mean, I use the tools that I've learned and that we've you know, the tools that I was taught and the tools that we've jointly developed over those decades to keep working on myself. And I found some extraordinary things. I found the huge truth that, of course, from what you've heard me describe, emotions, even the emotions we avoid as if they'll be the end of us, are not the enemy. They are really not the problem. Because when we stop the story about emotions, emotions themselves will pass quickly, almost in an animalistic way. If we stop, we could be like a small child who's not yet learned to be sophisticated. We can open with emotions. We can open with fear. We can open with anger. We can open with hurt. We can open with anything you can name, and it will flush through the body, and it will pass in a short few seconds to minutes and leave us ultimately in peace. So emotions are not the problem. The problem that we have is that we've become conditioned over time to avoid these emotions, and we're damn good at it. We're very sophisticated at it. So we tell ourselves stories, and over time we develop beliefs and make promises to ourselves and others that contain our ability to feel and rob us of the ability to identify pure emotions. So we add in stories. We tell ourselves who's to blame, or that I'm a victim, or that this is not allowed, this is dangerous, can't go there, shouldn't go there. Who can I look at to project my anger onto instead of feeling it? Like this, we play games based on the stories that we tell internally. And they do an insidious thing. They trap us by turning emotions that would otherwise flow into moods or states. So it's our wrestling with emotions, our manipulating emotions that scare us, that really cause the problem. What I've discovered repeatedly over the years is that with depression, it's not the things we're classically taught. Depression is not a mental illness. It's not definitive. It's not what it is. Although, of course, if it gets bad enough, it can cause mental illness. It's not a physical disease, though sure, if you get depression at a deep enough level, it can create physical disease. And it's not a genetic inevitability for any of us. There are some epigenetic connections that can feed into depression for sure, but when we are willing simply to stop the wrangling, to stop the manipulating, to stop the deals we're trying to do to keep emotions under wraps or to run away from them and escape them, and when we're willing to pause long enough to open to fully feel whatever is triggered in us in the moment, then magic happens. We always will open back into a sense of completeness and stillness. Often we'll open into a deep and profound sense of self. So I want to give you a little diagram here that is a beautiful metaphor that I've been using for about the last 10 or 12 years. Can you bring up the lily pad model for me, guys? This will explain some of what I'm talking about. Oh gosh, can we make that bigger? Is there any chance of pumping that up a little bit, or is that it? Okay. I'm pausing. If it doesn't get bigger, I'm going to assume that we can't make it any bigger. All right. Okay. I don't know if we can read this. You need to put your glasses on to read this. This model here is a beautiful metaphor. The model is basically showing that our unhealthy behaviors, so our reactions in life, and we're seeing a lot of this at the moment, okay? Even if we recognize there is, there's a greatness inside us, there's an innate greatness in all of us. And it's stating the obvious to say that these times of tumult, of crisis, of coronavirus are really demanding the best of us. They're demanding innovation, they're demanding genius, they're demanding some creativity, they're demanding some sense of well-being from which we can communicate to others, at least. They're demanding that we step up to the plate and step from an authentic sense of self. Otherwise, we're pretty doomed as humans. If we keep knee-jerk reacting the way we need knee-jerk reacting, then I mean, it's the things are going to continue to be dire and more dire. So if we look at our model here, the metaphor is of 3 lily pads floating on the top of a pond of consciousness. The lily pads are representing our unhealthy automatic behaviors in life. These are the ways we knee-jerk react, particularly when we're stressed. And the world is stressed at the moment, so we're going to see this. Now, if we look down, just imagine with me, right? Look down at a pond from the top and you see lily pads. You just see the lily pads, right? And we're saying here these lily pads are representing unhealthy behaviors, automatic behaviors, if you like, habits and knee-jerk reactions. They fall into 3 different categories. So when we're looking at pure behavior, we'll see here the behavior of inflation, the top one. And if your eyes are better than mine, because I'm struggling to read this, it's so small. You'll see with inflation, for me to mix metaphors here a little bit, okay? This is self-pumped up, like a balloon that's over-pumped, okay? So it's kind of, pumped up, puffed up. There's a grandiosity to our knee-jerk reactions with this type of game playing, with this type of behavior. So we're seeing, and I'll read some of them out here, boasting, exaggerating, overriding of other people's sensibilities. There can be an aggressiveness with it. There's definitely here, there's a sense that who I am is untouched by any of the shit in life. It's everybody else's fault. So we become blaming of others. Or we laugh it off. We pretend it doesn't touch us, and our job is just to entertain people, to uplift them, to fake it, if you like. Or another way that I'm not touched is, if I don't have any needs, let me help you, let me reach out and serve you. This is another form of inflation. Inflation is predicated on faking it by pretending to be bigger than the issue, pretending to be bigger than the stress. So we laugh it off. And we're seeing many, many examples on the internet at the moment of people doing this around the world. People laughing off the virus, the pandemic that's sweeping around the globe, as if they're untouchable, as if they cannot be harmed by it. And then partying and laughing and just blowing off steam. This is a form of inflation. It's a form of inflation that's based on a falsity. It takes energy to keep that up, to keep that mask of pretense up, to keep the game of bigness up. And it can burn us out. It can lead to overwhelm. It can lead to overload. It can lead ultimately to burnout. It's not sustainable. If we come down to the next version is deflation. So you'll see the next lily pad down. Deflation is the opposite of inflation, as you'd expect. So mixing my metaphors again, you'd see in this case, the balloon of self has been pumped up, but then all the air has been let out of it. So you've got a shriveled balloon of self. And in this, again, this unhealthy behavior, it's a behavior that is designed to keep our emotions at bay, to mute the sharpness of our emotions, to ameliorate them, in other words. And so we play games of deflation, trying to make ourselves more comfortable. But what happens is we shrink, we collapse, we play the victim, we hide out, we try to become non-targets or non-persons. We become self-effacing, we give up our own opinions, we give up our own power, and we just shrink. Now, this type of collapse, alongside the emotional suppression that takes place with this type of deflation, it's like we want to suffocate our emotions into non-existence. This is the heartland of depression. Depression is predicated on this type of emotional avoidance. Without suppression, without deflation, you may experience other pains in life, but you won't experience depression. So deflation like this, collapse, pretending that I'm cool, that I'm easy, that I'm just going with the flow, when inside I'm dying is the feeling. Inside, I'm so scared that I just want to shrivel and hide. So this version of gameplay, to avoid intense emotions, comes again with a massive cost. One of them, depression. Others, disconnection from life, for sure. Feeling like I'm an outsider looking in, feeling like I don't belong, these type of things. But at the heart of it, depression. Third version, rigidity. So a third version of game playing, in order to avoid the emotions that we're scared of, is to get brittle, to get hard. Now, if I go back to my mixed metaphors, this is like the balloon of self pumped up tight, but contained inside of a square box. So you've pumped up the balloon, you've got pressure pushing out from the inside, you've got pressure of containment coming from the outside, all in an attempt to control our emotions, just to kind of steel against them, to brace against emotions. This comes with a big subset. It comes, if you look on the list there, I can barely read this, there's anxiety, tension. This will come with criticism of self and others, judgment of self and others, doubt, stress, turgidity, tension in life. It's like we're trying to fend off against something, and we are trying to prove that we're up to the game of fighting off these attacks that trigger so many emotions in us. So with this, obviously, anxiety is here, stress is here. It's a definition of the game here. All these games, these three games, we play in order to attempt to keep ourselves safe from these bad things called intense emotions. And the price is horrendous. Nobody ever stops and tells us, it's okay, please feel that. Just stop and open, let the biochemistry change in your body until it's complete, because that's essentially what an emotion is. An emotion is, it is simply a biochemical shift in the body, a bioelectrical shift in the body. If we stop the stories, again, I'm repeating myself, the emotion will come. It might feel intense, but it will leave us. It will pass through quite quickly and we'll come to a sense of peace. The difficulty is when we look at these games and we go, okay, I recognize the game causes pain. So the game causes, inflation, we'll say burnout, deflation, depression, rigidity, anxiety, or stress. I don't want to play that game anymore. And we decide we're not going to play the game. And we don't look any deeper. We just decide, we just say, okay, not that. Then, unfortunately, one of two things will happen. The first thing is we're not very successful at changing the behavior, because the behavior is ingrained in us. It's been conditioned in us for a long time. Or second alternative is, we suppress one form of behavior to find something else pops up in its place. And that something else is either a different form of the same style of game or a different style of game. And we end up playing kind of whack-a-mole, trying to knock down the upwellings of different automatic behaviors, different reactions to life and to the people around us, and particularly those we love. We're still falling back into the old games. What I've learned over this time, and if you look a little bit deeper down and get your magnifying glass out of the model here, is if we look deeper, so we look under the surface here, we look down into the underbelly and into the water of the pond, we'll see on our stem system that we've got something called conditioning or filters. We're conditioned from, and possibly in the womb, I think, but definitely from early childhood, to have beliefs around emotions and who we are in relation to life. Often those are disempowering. With most of us, our parents were doing the best they could given the conditioning they experienced in life. And a lot of our parents have been through immense hardships, and their parents went through immense hardships and traumas in life. And they taught us the best way they could to avoid their types of traumas. And the resources were limited. And so often coming our way is the projection of pain laid on us in terms of beliefs. And with beliefs, very, very often, the threat or the promise. So, you're good, you get the strokes if you believe this, if you believe what I'm telling you to believe, and you get punished if you believe something else. But often those beliefs are negative. Many of us are brought up to believe that, we're limited, we can't, that greatness does not exist inside us. It may be for other people. If you look at it in terms of manifestation, if you look at it in terms of wealth and station in life, so often we're brought up to believe there is a limit, a finite limit to what we can achieve in life. And it's simply a hand-me-down. Out of this come rules. Rules are like crusty versions of beliefs. They do the same undermining job. The huge, potency of beliefs here is that they go in often in childhood, and we grow up and decide that we don't believe that anymore. We grow out of that belief system. We forget about the beliefs that have been ingrained in us since early years. But unfortunately, the beliefs do not give up their belief in us. They're still there. They're still operating at a subterranean level, sabotaging us on a daily basis until we turn awareness to them and start to work on them. The same thing with rules. The same thing with values. Values so often in life, we think we prize this and this and this, but they're hand-me-downs. We need to get conscious in our exploration of them to free ourselves up and to be really at home and liberated in the way we set about achieving whatever it is our true heart's desire in life. And a different version of these conditioned responses, vows and promises. So often in life we are coerced or we feel coerced into making promises that either are initially unhealthy or become unhealthy over time, under some duress, during some trauma, at times when we don't know what to do emotionally other than to comply. We so often put out promises. We say, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to be like that again. I'm never going to be like this person. I'm always going to be like this person. I'm going to shut down to these types of people. I'm like this, on and on. And same thing happens. We can forget that we've made the promise. We can forget that we've made the vow. The strongest of these, by the way, are deals that we do with life. I can remember traumas in my life where I've gone, God, please, let this be okay, and I'll always yada, yada, yada from now on. And then we're on the hook. We're really on the hook. And they worm their way into our unconscious. They're affecting us and sabotaging us throughout life, whether we remember them or believe in them or not. They're still there. They've still got us on the hook. So our first step to reach real health and to dip into the greatness that will really kind of serve us and carry us forward incredibly in life is to look at these. And there are techniques that you can use to recondition old unhealthy conditioning. You can't just change your mind. You can't just decide to believe something else. It doesn't work that way. You have to pull out the old stuff by the root and then really open organically into the truth and reality of what's here. And then that can be put in place. So there are processes that we have in the journey that can allow you to really let go of the past and to healthily recondition some of your automatic responses in life. And then finally, if we look down deeper here, look down onto the red writing, you can see it's a little bit bigger there, maybe a little bit more understandable. The whole powerhouse of this metaphor, this model, is the emotions that we've avoided. Our emotional avoidance zone, sometimes we call it the emotional no-go zone. And there are a huge number of emotions down there that many of us would avoid at all costs in life, say that. The story sometimes is I'd rather die than feel that, which obviously is bullshit, but you get the picture here. They're emotions that scare us and we don't know what to do with them. They feel like the biggies. They feel like the ones that would unravel us or undermine us if we went there. Commonly down here, you'll see things like I described to you, anger and rage. I was terrified of my own and other people's anger growing up. It fed in massively to the depression pattern. And other things like fear. Many of us have fear of fear, overwhelm, devastation, grief, fear of being out of control, fear of being incompetent or imperfect, fear of being unlovable or abandoned, fear of death itself, fear of non-existence. Like this, there are a huge number of emotions here that we are conditioned to avoid. If you truly want freedom, if you want greatness, if you want to be a part of the solution this world is looking for right now, rather than a part of the problem, the biggest invitation I can make to you is to tell the truth about what you have avoided emotionally at all costs. And from that place, to begin to step into those emotions, to begin to explore directly what is the truth of opening with these emotions. Because the truth is, they are never what we fear they are. They're never what we fear they are. They're never what we imagine they are. They are sometimes powerful, but always biochemical shifts that take place in the body. The invitation is to meet those emotions and find freedom. Then we're really on a roll in terms of coming to forgiveness. And I know, we're hosted in South Africa here. South Africa has this extraordinary tradition of forgiveness post-apartheid. The times that I've come to South Africa, I've been moved to tears by this. When we meet our emotions at the deepest level, when we start to empty out and to hold maybe some internal campfires, to speak from hurt, to speak from vulnerability, to speak words that we've never spoken before to those who've hurt us, to apologize for the hurts that we've created, then organic forgiveness, and I'm talking total, absolute forgiveness, becomes not just possible, it becomes natural, second nature to us. It becomes almost inevitable. And that is a massive healing force in our lives and in the lives of those we love around us. So if your prayer is to, I'm seeing that's disappeared now, okay, great. If your prayer is to really step up to the plate during these times and to become a part of a solution rather than to become part of the problem that the world is seeking, then these are the invitations that I want to make with you. I know this is counterintuitive. I know that this is something that a lot of people will not say to you. They will never say to you. And I'm saying to you, turn to face your fears. Turn to look the tiger in the mouth and let go. It will set you free to do that. We have resources that can help you with this. And because of current times, we've decided to offer you many resources completely free of charge. And I'm hoping that Gerard has the graphics to go with this, but I just want to show you what I'm offering for free here. Let me see if we can see that. Okay, this is a book that I authored with Brandon that became an Amazon #1 bestseller. It's called Light in the Heart of Darkness. The book is focused on depression, but also shows us the way not just to free ourselves from depression, but it works equally with stress, anxiety, these types of common issues in life, overload, burnout, these types of things. The book is quite explanatory. It will lead you through healing stories and exercises that you can do with yourself or do with a friend. Exercises that will do exactly what I've been describing to you here. If you go online to kevinbillet.org, Kevin, 2 L's, 2 T's in billet.org, you can download the ebook free of charge. Also on that site are audio exercises. So closed eye visualizations, introspections, meditations that will allow you to go through exactly what I went through to set myself free, and for the last quarter of a century to live in freedom. Just as an example, I hope, definitely to myself, I hope to the world, of the way that authentic greatness can be expressed. I'm trying my best in this life to walk my talk, and the tools that are online here, the tools that are available, will allow you to do just that. I'm praying that you decide that it's not on the outside of you, whatever you're looking for. There's nothing wrong with manifesting wealth. There is nothing wrong with creating the lifestyle you want. There is nothing wrong with creating healthy relationships. Please continue to do these things. And please don't fall into the trap of believing that they are going to fix your fundamental issues, because they're not. They're not going to save you. They're not going to make you whole. Nothing that you can reach for and attain on the outside is going to bring you to absolute peace in yourself. So please access these tools, use these tools, find out the truth of your being, find out and dive into the innate greatness that is inside you. Come home to the peace that has always been your true nature. And from that, my strong suspicion is the game of manifestation, the playing with the Play-Doh of reality, is going to be a much more enjoyable ride. So I'll wrap it up there. Please use the resource